Welcome to the Overthinker's Guide to Modern Marketing, or as we like to call it,
How to sell a sandwich without accidentally starting a cult.
Welcome back, curious minds and marketing romantics, to the Overthinker's Guide to Modern Marketing. I'm your host, Sean Makin, a man who has made peace with the idea that marketing is often a brilliantly worded excuse wrapped around a baffling outcome. More often than not, that outcome involves someone buying a miniature sombrero for their goldfish or sunglasses for their hamster.
You hold it down, and I'll get the stapler.
You've made it through the glitter-drenched gauntlet of influencer outreach and the noble, occasionally baffling world of brand ambassadors. Congratulations! Today, we descend into the wonderfully crooked alleyways of behavioural economics and advertising, a field that insists that humans aren't cold, rational logic engines, but rather warm, erratic decision-making machines powered by memory, emotion, and an occasional biscuit. So grab a cup of tea and perhaps a biscuit of your own, or if you're feeling wildly on brand, a snack you didn't intend to buy but somehow now feel very emotionally connected to. This is your invitation to discover why people behave so oddly, and why it's not just predictable, it's powerful.
Episode 4, The Surprisingly Predictable Chaos of Human Behaviour, or
Why we buy Bluetooth-enabled toothbrushes and trust product reviews from strangers named Barry. Part 1. Humans are predictably irrational.
Let's begin with a comforting delusion that humans are rational. That we are thoughtful, composed beings who navigate life with the precision of a Swiss watch. Always weighing pros and cons, always comparing the unit price per gram, always reading the terms and conditions before clicking accept. Traditional economics, bless its heart, was built on this assumption that the average consumer is a kind of sentient calculator with strong opinions on compound interest and has the self-control of a Buddhist monk. It imagined a world where everyone makes decisions like they're designing an interplanetary fuel strategy, calmly, carefully, and entirely devoid of snack cravings. But behavioural economics suggests something far more accurate and far more entertaining. Humans are, for the most part, gloriously, predictably irrational. We are not calculators. We are unreliable narrators with credit cards. We flit between moods, memories and marketing emails, driven not by logic, but by hunger, nostalgia and the vague sense that we deserve a little treat. We buy things we don't need because they're on sale. We ignore useful advice because it came from someone who once liked a tweet we didn't. We choose the middle option on menus because it feels the safest, not the tastiest. We'll pay £3 extra for a coffee because the barista has a moustache we admire.
It's so manly.
We are, in short, what an alien diplomat patiently attempting to understand Earth's dominant species might describe as
chaotically consistent.
But here's the beautiful twist. Advertisers have stopped fighting it. Gone are the days of assuming the consumer will act in their best economic interest. Now we live in a golden age of leaning into irrationality, of understanding that the way humans actually behave is far more useful than the way they should behave in theory. No longer is it about shouting louder or offering the biggest discount. It's about nudging people in just the right moment, in just the right way, through just the right emotional window, and watching them choose your brand, not because it's the cheapest or fastest, but because it feels right. And in the strange, inconsistent, wonderful world of human behaviour, feeling right often trumps being logical. So yes, humans may be predictably irrational, but once you know the patterns in their beautiful madness, you don't need perfect logic. You just need good timing, and possibly a friendly nudge disguised as a limited time offer.
Part 2. The illusion of rationality.
Let us now debunk one of the greatest myths of modern commerce, that consumers calmly weigh their options before making a purchase, like stoic astronomers calculating the mass of a neutron star.
Good news, we've confirmed physics still works. Bad news, it's showing off again.
Imagine two shoppers. One is calmly comparing options, perhaps murmuring to themselves in Latin, thoughtfully weighing grams against pennies, features against benefits, ROI against aesthetic appeal. The other is grabbing frantically at a buy now button with the manic energy of someone who has seen the words "only 3 left" and believes they are in a race for survival, not socks. That second shopper isn't irrational in the chaotic sense. They're using a different operating system entirely, one that has been honed by evolution, emotion, and just a dash of marketing genius. Welcome to the world of heuristics, mental shortcuts that we all use to survive the sheer absurdity of modern decision making. They help us make thousands of choices each day without collapsing from choice paralysis or even being eaten by metaphorical tigers. Behavioural economics doesn't just accept these heuristics, it celebrates them because they explain so much. Why we trust the first price we see, why we fear missing out on limited deals, why we feel clever when we see a crossed out £99 replaced with £49.99, and why we instinctively choose the product with more stars even if the reviews say something like decent or smelled weird but worked. These mental shortcuts are not flaws in the system, they are the system. They are our brains doing the best they can with incomplete information and limited time, while juggling emotions, caffeine levels, and the crushing existential weight of being alive in the 21st century. And marketers? Well, they understand this. They know that logic is lovely, but a good deal feels better than a spreadsheet. A limited time badge is more persuasive than an in-depth spec sheet. And when in doubt, customers will choose the path of least resistance, the one paved with reassurance, clarity, and the faint suggestion that if they don't act now, Karen from Surrey will get the last one. Understanding the illusion of rationality isn't about assuming people are foolish. It's about respecting the elegant efficiency of how we really think. And if you can build your messaging, your pricing, your offers, and your interface around that, you're not gaming the system, you're speaking fluent human.
Well, hello. Part 3. Heuristics. The mind's shortcuts.
If the human brain had a staff room, heuristics would be the quiet, overworked employees making all the big decisions while logic is still waiting for its coffee. These mental shortcuts are our way of coping with a world that hurls information at us faster than a toddler with a new drum set. And like all good shortcuts, they don't always lead to the perfect outcome, but they usually get us somewhere that feels right. Heuristics whisper, "This feels familiar. You've done this before. Trust it." Instead of handing you a spreadsheet and asking you for a 10-page report on which toothpaste to buy. So here are a few of the classic heuristics.
Availability.
If something comes to mind easily, we assume it's common, important, or true, which is why repeated advertising works. Not because it tells us anything new, but because it implants familiarity. And humans, we trust what feels familiar. It's like that one friend who always turns up at your door with biscuits. You're not sure why you trust them, but you do.
Anchoring.
The first number we see becomes a mental reference point, regardless of whether it makes sense. That's why retailers show us the expensive thing first. It's not just about aspiration, it's about psychological groundwork. Once we've seen a coat for £300, the one at £150 feels like a steal, even if it's wildly overpriced and smells desperately of despair.
Representativeness.
If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and comes in sleek packaging, it must be a quality duck. We judge things based on how closely they resemble our mental template of what good looks like. That's why slick branding often trumps substance. Not because we're superficial, but because our brains are trying to be efficient.
Scarcity.
If there are only 2 things left, it must be worth having. The less available something seems, the more desirable it comes, even if that scarcity is entirely artificial, like designer keychains or limited edition garden gnomes.
Default bias.
We tend to stick with whatever the default option is. Not because it's better, because it's easier. Unchecking boxes feels like work. Choosing another plan takes energy, so we stick, and marketers know this. These heuristics aren't bugs in the system. They are survival strategies wrapped in neural efficiency. They're how we conserve mental energy while trying to pick a new sofa, answer emails, and remember what day it is. Advertisers, the clever creatures that they are, spend years learning how to align with these heuristics, not to manipulate ideally, but to make choices feel simpler, clearer, obvious. The best marketing doesn't force a decision, it simply sets the stage where the decision becomes inevitable. So next time you find yourself clicking add to cart because a website told you that 24 people are looking at the same jumper right now, take comfort. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do.
Part 4. Emotional triggers and bias.
It's not all maths and shortcuts. Emotions are like the mischief gremlins under the decision-making floorboards, unpredictable, persuasive, and occasionally covered in glitter. They sneak into the buying process at odd angles. You might think you're buying a raincoat because it's waterproof, but in truth, you're buying it because it reminds you of that one childhood summer when you jumped in and out of puddles and didn't care if you got your socks wet. Emotional marketing taps into the chaos in all the right ways. Stories that evoke nostalgia, joy, fear, belonging, or even aspirational envy bypass the brain's spreadsheet department entirely and land squarely in the lounge of the soul. And once the heart is involved, logic tends to quietly excuse itself and go for a walk. This is why emotionally driven ads are remembered more, shared more, and acted on more, because we don't just respond to messages, we respond to meaning. Another powerful emotional lever is social proof. The strangely comforting illusion that if everyone else is doing something, it must be a decent idea. Humans, despite our advanced spacefaring ambitions and smart fridges, remain deeply social creatures. We look for cues, signs, validation. We see a crowd rushing towards a sale and suddenly we're compelled to join it, not because we need what they're buying, but because we fear being left behind. The phrase, "everyone else has one," has sold more gadgets, trainers and questionable skincare routines than 1,000 product specs ever could. Emotions may not always lead us to the most efficient choices, but they lead us to the most human ones. And if your brand can speak to the very human part of your audience, truthfully, playfully and with care, you'll have something even better than attention. You'll have resonance.
Part 5. Framing and nudge theory.
Now, let us enter the charming and sometimes naughty world of framing and nudge theory, where words are spells, context is everything, and a well-placed asterisk can change the course of a customer's wallet. Framing is the ancient art of saying the exact same thing two different ways, and having one feel like a miracle and the other feel like a mild disappointment. Consider the humble yogurt. You say it's 90% fat-free and people will think it's positively saintly. Say it's 10% fat and suddenly it's suspiciously indulgent. Same fact, entirely different emotional conclusion. Framing works because it speaks to emotion before logic can catch up. It primes the brain to expect one kind of experience and interpret the message accordingly. A price reduction framed as a limited time offer feels more urgent than a plain discount. Buy now and save beats "this is cheaper than yesterday." Tucked in just behind the velvet ropes of framing is the velvet gloved hand of nudge theory. Nudges are subtle environmental cues that steer decision making without actually forcing anything. They're like the gentle tap on the elbow from the universe saying, "This way please." They are countdown timers. Only 2 left in stock badges, pre-checked boxes, highlighting the most popular option, even placing the most expensive option so the middle one seems reasonable. Nudges don't make the choice for you, they just make one choice feel obvious. When done with care, nudges can enhance clarity, reduce decision fatigue, and gently help people do what they already want to do. When misused, however, they can veer into manipulation. It's the difference between pointing out the best biscuit and shoving it into someone's mouth while smiling. The power of framing and nudges lies not in deception, but designing the experience. A good marketer doesn't just throw facts at people and hope they catch, they shape the context, gently, cleverly, and ethically. Because how we say things and how they're shown to us shapes what we choose. And understanding that's less about pulling levers and more about reading the room with cosmic precision.
Part 6. Applying it all to advertising.
So how do advertisers use these delicious quirks of the human psyche? With grace, with curiosity, with ethics ideally, and yes, occasionally with a well-timed nudge dressed in a limited edition badge. They craft campaigns not to bludgeon consumers into action with brute force discounts or bland slogans, but to whisper in harmony with the human mind. The savvy advertiser doesn't aim for attention alone, they aim for alignment. They design campaigns that connect emotionally, so they speak to the heart, not just the wallet. Leverage familiarity and trust, tapping into what feels safe, proven and human. Frame offers in a way that feel good, because a gift with purchase always sounds nicer than bonus infantry liquidation. They use subtle nudges to reduce friction, spark urgency or guide attention without setting off alarm bells. These strategies work not because people are gullible, but because people are people. Complex, emotional, time-pressed, hungry for clarity and meaning in a noisy, choice-overloaded world. The result? Well, it results in messages that don't just get seen, they land. They don't just reach consumers, they resonate. They become part of the user's internal story. I chose this because it felt right, because it made sense to me. In the end, the magic of applying behavioural economics to advertising isn't about adding tricks or gimmicks, it's about removing friction, surfacing meaning, and treating your audience not like walking wallets, but like the gloriously irrational beings that they are.
Final thought. Marketing with empathy.
At its best, behavioural economics in advertising isn't about tricking people. It isn't about exploiting their weaknesses or hacking their brains like a low-budget sci-fi villain. It's about something far older, far wiser, and far more meaningful. Empathy. It's about recognising that behind every click is a person with habits, hopes, hang-ups, and history. Someone who might be shopping while waiting for a bus, or dodging work emails, or just trying to feel a little bit more control of their day. It's about meeting people where they really are. Emotional, inconsistent, distracted, instinctive, irrational in beautiful patterned ways, and designing messages, products, and experiences that respect that reality. When you use behavioural insights with empathy, you're not coercing people into choices. You're clearing a path for them, one that feels smoother, lighter, better aligned with how they already move through the world. That, dear listener, is the real power. Not to manipulate, but to connect. Not to force behaviour, but to understand it. Not to trick people into yes, but to help them find the yes that was already waiting inside of them. Marketing with empathy is slower, smarter, stronger, and ultimately better for everyone involved. So this concludes our curious little voyage into the baffling brilliance of behavioural economics. Remember, you are not a cold, rational decision-making machine. You are a warm-blooded miracle of biases, shortcuts, and occasionally buying things at 2 a.m. because they were 35% off and had really convincing stars. Thank you for listening, and if you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, follow, or do whatever your platform describes as mildly supportive enthusiasm. And if you didn't enjoy it, well, maybe that's your negativity bias talking. So until next time, keep asking why humans do what they do, and maybe enjoy a yogurt described as mostly delicious. Cheers!
The Overthinker's Guide to Modern Marketing is now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and a mildly suspicious number of other podcast platforms, possibly even your smart fridge if it gets good Wi-Fi.